Hey, what is going on, guys? Danny here. Welcome back to the channel, and I hope you're all doing well. So we're back with some more Crimson Desert content, and today what we're going to be doing is we're going to be testing the RTX 4090. So I don't have the 5090 in my possession, so we're not going to be able to, unfortunately, test the fastest fastest gaming GPU on the planet for this game, but we've got the next best thing, which is the RTX 4090. We've got it overclocked, just like we did with the RX 9070 XT, which, by the way, if you haven't seen that video and you're wondering how AMD's best GPU of this current generation performs, then go ahead, check that video out. It is live on the channel, so we go through all the different resolutions and some various settings just to see how performance is. So we're going to be doing the same thing over here with the 4090. This was originally supposed to be video 2 of 3. For Crimson Desert content that I wanted to do for the channel. Video 3 of 3 was supposed to be how this game would perform on a handheld, so some low-end hardware, right? Unfortunately, though, the MSI Claw 8 AI Plus that I have uses Intel's iGPU, right? And I mean, it's a really capable handheld. I've made a few different videos on it, done some testing with it, and the benchmarks are pretty promising, and it's very capable. Unfortunately, when it comes to Crimson Desert, the developers, for some reason, just decided not to make Intel GPU hardware supported. So, do want to make that distinction. If you have an Intel CPU, you're fine. But when it comes to Intel's GPU hardware, so that's their iGPU, that's their discrete GPU, so their B580. If you have an ARC Alchemist GPU, the A770, it will straight up not work. You can try to launch, you can install the game, you can try to launch it, and you're just going to be met with a message saying that the GPU is unsupported. Hey guys, Editing Danny here. I wanted to interject here and say that this was recorded before Pearl Abyss had put out a statement regarding the support for Intel's ARC GPUs, because it looks like they have done a 180 and are going to be supporting Intel's ARC GPUs. In fact, I believe the latest patch now does allow for Intel ARC GPUs to launch the game, but I've read users who have Intel ARC GPUs like the B580 and are using an iGPU like the MSI Claw are experiencing immediate crashes and can't actually run the game. So it looks like there's still quite a bit of work to be done. I wish they had done this before the game launched, but hey, better late than never. And what's kind of scummy about this whole situation is the fact that the developers might make a more separate video discussing this in more depth, because it kind of sets a bad precedent. But basically, they didn't even say anything before the game launched and not warning people. So, you know, someone with an Intel GPU might have bought the game, then were met with that message, and then they had to refund. But, you know, it creates this, it kind of opens this can of worms. You know, why didn't you guys communicate this before? Also, Intel apparently had reached out to them and offered to help them to optimize the game and make it supported for the GPUs, and they rejected it, which I think is absolutely fucking crazy. But I digress. Hopefully, you know, they do a 180 on that decision, because I know a lot of people, there's a lot of fellow handheld bros that are out there that have been wanting to play this game. I wanted to test out the MSI Claw that I have with this game. It would have been, I think, some really interesting content. But unfortunately, it looks like that's just not going to happen until these guys, you know, get off their asses and decide to support that. I get it, 1%, less than 1% of the GPU market share is with Intel, but I mean, come on. Like, why would you guys purposely do that? It just doesn't make sense. All right, so let's get into it. We'll go into the settings over here. So we're going to be doing the same thing, guys. Like I said, like I explained in that last video, I'm not going to be... We'll try out max settings, but most of the time I'm going to be using the settings that I like to play with, which is a mixture of high and ultra. And we'll start off with 1080p, and we'll see how performance is from there, which kind of gives us a comparison, right? Because we went through all these different settings and different resolutions with the 9070 XT. So it'll give us a good comparison on how the 4090 does compared to AMD, or, you know, vice versa. All right, guys, so we're in the game. So what you're going to be looking at here right now to start off with is just 1080p native. So we'll start off with like our baseline 1080p performance, just like we did with the 9070 XT. Gonna go ahead and turn on the lows there. That way you guys can see what's going on in terms of low FPS. So it looks like, you know, in terms of average FPS, it is, you know, significantly higher compared to the RX 9070 XT. I think with 1080p native on the RX 9070 XT, we were looking at like, what, 130, 140 FPS, which obviously, you know, wasn't bad at all. The 4090 is just in a total league of its own. Really, like I said, the only other exception being the 5090 being the next leap, but 4090 is still an absolute monster GPU. So, I mean, you know, if you're one of those weird people who has a 4090 and you game at 1080p, then yeah, you're gonna be absolutely balling over here. Yeah, this was the open area. I remember we tested, and then we made our way into the town of Hernand. But overall, yeah, performance is good. VRAM usage also at 1080p with high settings, not bad at all. I mean, we're looking at 5-6 gigabytes of VRAM usage. So if you're using a graphics card still with 8 gigabytes of VRAM, yeah, I mean, you're gonna have to stick with 1080p, but you'll be fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, very, very solid performance from the RTX 4090. And yeah, even at 1080p, we're still seeing, you know, pretty high GPU usage, right? There's a lot of games out there. Oh, wow, that guy's getting beat up. There's a lot of games out there, right? Where with the 4090, when you're playing at 1080p, GPU usage is like hovering around 80 to 90%. So you know you're running into a CPU bottleneck. Here, that clearly have the GPU pegged. So what we'll do now is we'll go ahead and we'll go ahead and turn on Ray Reconstruction. And I want to correct myself on something I probably should have mentioned in my last video. It's the fact that, and it says it right there in the description too, so my fault on that. Where is it? Now, what's weird here is on the AMD side of things, I could turn on Ray Reconstruction without having to turn on FSR. Here, it's making me turn on DLSS. Although what I can do is I can just turn off upscale resolution. And then, yeah, I can do that. And okay, well, it forces DLAA. So we'll have to roll with it. I'll keep reflex off for now. I don't want to mess with the lows or anything like that right now. Let's just keep things a little bit consistent. So yeah, we'll turn on DLSS Ray Reconstruction on. We'll have DLAA on. I don't know why I can't say that, but yeah, we'll have that on, and we'll see how performance goes. So what I was talking about previously was when it comes to using Ray Reconstruction, it mentions how when you enable this option, it turns the ray tracing and sets the lighting quality to the highest level, which is why it impacts performance so drastically, right? So it's not just either ray regeneration or ray reconstruction itself that's causing that performance penalty. Because if we actually go into the settings, you guys can see here that lighting has been set all the way to max. And then I don't know if I change this back to high, if it disables it does. So you have to use both of them together in conjunction with each other. Otherwise, Ray Reconstruction will straight up just not work. So when we have this enabled, we hop back into the game, turn on the lows, and yeah, as you guys can see here, performance, it's basically dropped by 100 FPS, if not even more. So it's basically the same thing we were seeing on the AMD side of things. It's not, you know, just AMD's Ray Reconstruction or Ray Regeneration that has that exhibits that big performance penalty or big performance tax. It's also Ray Reconstruction. So it happens on both NVIDIA and AMD. So again, like I pointed out in that previous video, I don't know if, for me, I don't think it's worth it. I'd rather just put up with that awful lighting or the flat-looking lighting if push comes to shove and enjoy a much more smoother experience, right?
Light bless you and keep you.
Because we're averaging like 80-ish FPS with our lows in the low 70s and 0.1% in the mid 60s. So I mean, it's playable, all right? Like, I don't want to sound like this is totally unplayable. Like, you can still totally play the game. But again, we're at 1080p, right? So imagine what happens when you go all the way up to 1440p and 4K. We are using DLAA though. Can't pronounce it. But yeah, let's turn on upscaling then and see what happens. Alright guys, so we're back in the game, and what I've actually just done is I've actually just enabled DLSS 4.5 in quality mode. Show you guys here. Yeah, DLSS 4.5 in quality mode. And yeah, we see a drastic bump to our FPS. Where before we were seeing like 80-ish FPS average, now all of a sudden we've jumped into the high 130s. And it's a lot more smoother. So yeah, basically you'd have to use upscaling in this game if you want to really crank up the visuals, especially with Ray Reconstruction. Going into the town over here. The performance drops a little bit, but still overall smooth.
Land that kick, and the fight's over, right? You stink of trouble.
How?
Yeah, so you basically have to play the game like this. Alright, so let's go ahead, and what we'll do next is we'll actually go ahead and we'll disable Ray Reconstruction. I want to see if when I disable this, does it revert my lighting quality back to high? Okay, yeah, it does. But it's the same thing as what was happening with the RX 9070. So, disabled Ray Reconstruction. I just want to see what the performance is like at 1080p with DLSS 4.5 quality mode. Set the numbers.
Greetings.
Okay, so performance actually doesn't go up a whole lot. So even though we are seeing, you know, really high GPU usage, around 99%, 100%, I guess we're still running into that CPU bottleneck with the 4090. Yeah, so performance really does not change at all compared to native.
Good day indeed.
So there's really no point in using DLSS upscaling at 1080p unless you want to use Ray Reconstruction. Then it only makes sense. Because then you do see a massive performance uplift. You're better off using DLAA to clean up the, you know, the jaggies. All right, so let's go ahead now that we've looked at 1080p performance. Let's go ahead and bump up the resolution to 1440p and see what the performance is like. All right, guys, so we're going to be doing 1440p next. First, we'll do native settings, native 1440p with the same settings I showed you guys as last time.
Dwarves can pull gadgets out of thin air with their
Okay,
hands.
go ahead and get the numbers reset for you guys there too. So this is what the performance is like out in the open area. So performance doesn't drop too much compared to 1080p where we were averaging around like what 180, 190 FPS. Seems like we're in the 160s to 170s. Lows could be higher, I think. I don't know if this is an issue with like the NVIDIA GPU driver overhead, but I did notice like when it came to AMD, the lows were more stable.
Watch it.
But still, overall performance is still very, very solid. Going into the town over here, still in the 150s, still absolutely smooth. Game still looks great.
A fine day for adventure.
Alright, so what we'll do next is we'll go ahead and turn on the Ray Reconstruction. Scale mode. DLAA. Ray Reconstruction. Resetting the number here for you guys, and yeah, there you guys see it. Huge drastic performance drop. Basically 100 FPS loss right then and there, so yeah, even on the NVIDIA side, performance is drastically drastically cut. And yeah, that's when you have to bring in upscaling modes. We'll go with quality.
Look like a big boulder.
Numbers reset, and yeah, there you go. Performance is a lot better. Yep, 90-ish FPS, 81 FPS, 1% low, and 70 in the 0.1% low. So this makes it a lot more playable. Alright, so we'll go ahead and then turn off Ray Reconstruction. Then you guys can see what performance of 1440p is like without it, and just if you want to use upscaling to max your FPS. Okay, so yeah, bit of a nice performance bump there, 20-ish FPS. We were looking at 150 FPS when it came to native 1440p, and then with DLSS quality, DLSS 4.5, that is, see like a 20 FPS bump. And honestly, I would argue that if you have a 1080p monitor, you might be better off actually just doing this, gaming. And I've made a video about this too, and a lot of people who weren't actually even happy with that suggestion. But 1440p upscaled, in my opinion, looks better than 1080p native. And it runs about the same.
Want the flavor deep?
Performance difference isn't too drastic.
You're new here, aren't you?
Okay, so now that we've checked out 1440p performance, let's go ahead and take a look at the monster, the 4K. And I've been gaming on my 4K OLED rig with the 4090, and it's been pretty playable. But I'll show you guys what I usually do. So let's go ahead and do that now. All right, guys. So we're looking at 4K now, 4K native, same settings, and let's see what the performance is like.
Well now, don't you? No, fragrant.
So with 4K native, with mostly high settings and a few things at ultra, you're looking at around 100 FPS average. 1% low in the 90 FPS range. It's not horrible. It's still very, very playable. And I figure, you know, a lot of people who have a 4090 are probably gaming at 4K. So checking out performance is definitely worth it. VRAM usage actually isn't too bad as well. We're looking at a little over 8 gigabytes, and process was a little over 7 gigabytes. Okay, so let's go ahead and turn on Ray Reconstruction, which will max out our lighting. And yeah, there you go. We're back to an unplayable mess. So with the RX 9070 XT, we were like at what, 15 FPS? And now with the 4090, we're at 25 FPS. So much faster. But yeah, you basically need to use upscaling in conjunction with it. Now, when it came to the And when it came to the RX 9070, even with FSR on performance mode, and I'm gonna use performance mode now that we're at 4K, it was only getting us around like 45-ish FPS. So let's go ahead and see what happens with DLSS 4.5 in performance mode here. Okay, so yeah, low 50s. It's kind of playable.
Well now.
I'd still try to aim for like a locked 60 FPS though.
Not a speck of good. Not a speck.
Help a fella out.
Let's go ahead and check out performance mode. Yeah, performance mode is definitely needed. It's a lot more tolerable, right, at 4K, because you're upscaling from 1080p, so the AI upscaler just has a lot more data to work with since the internal resolution is higher, right? Going from, when using performance mode at like 1080p, it looks awful. So in this case, what we're gonna have to do then is let's try out frame generation. And the 4090 doesn't support X3 or X4 mode like the 50 series can, but hey, at least it's something, right? So let's go ahead and check that out. And I noticed when you turn on frame generation, reflex is automatically turned on, so you definitely need it. So let's go ahead and get that enabled. Did I enable it? Why? There we go. Now, when it comes to NVIDIA and when using frame generation, I noticed like with MSI Afterburner, the frame times just are not counted correctly. So just pay attention to the average FPS and ignore the 1% and 0.1% lows. I think there was a fix for it. I'm not sure if there was a certain file I have to download for Rivatuner, but I'll have to take a look into it. But getting around 120 FPS, just definitely a lot more smoother. But yeah, if you're looking to play at 4K, you want Ray Reconstruction with the higher lighting, you're going to have to use DLSS 4.5 in performance mode, and you're going to have to utilize something like frame generation. I mean, it's not bad. You can definitely notice a little bit of input lag, but it's not, you know, something that I would say is like detrimental to my gameplay experience. Again, this is a single player game, right? So I just want to see, for the hell of it, what happens when we max out everything, right? Cinematic. Even the post-processing will bump that up. Okay, so performance actually just doesn't change that much. Did we even apply it? Hold on. Hold on a minute. Yeah, we applied it. I'm surprised. Yep.
May I help you, friend?
So even though it's cinematic settings, so the game's cranked up, frame generation definitely helps here. Definitely.
Lose yourself.
Yeah, this is totally playable.
Consider yourself well met.
But yeah, I mean, 4090. Gotta give it the credit, since it's an absolute monster.
The goblins and bandits have been ruining the
But yeah, that's 4090 performance for you guys in a nutshell. 1080p, 1440p, and 4K. Just thought I'd do a quick performance overview for you guys, for those of you who are curious to see how it performs in this game with all the various settings and resolutions. But again, let me know in the comments what your experience has been like. And that's going to wrap it up for this one, and we'll touch base in the next video. Take care.
If you guys found this video to be informative and entertaining, then leave a like. Let me know your thoughts and comments down below. Be sure to check out the video description for cool links and ways to support the channel, such as using my Amazon affiliate link. And if you're interested in seeing more content like this, then consider subscribing. I'd greatly appreciate it. Thank you guys so much for watching, take care, and I'll see you in the next one.